Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to the EKN Radio Network. Another edition of our EKN Debrief, our podcast where we take the opportunity to review an event that we were just attending. This is actually episode number 47. It is April the 16th, 2019. My name is Rob Howden, joined as always by David Cole, as today we look at the 2019 finale for the Challenge of the Americas, rounds number 5 and 6 at Sim Raceway Performance Karting Center in Sonoma. The event on April the 5th, 6th, and 7th. We are, probably about 10 days down the line, almost just a little over a week from that event. Got back last week. I was the guy that was there, part of our dual weekend double-double. David Cole and I doing two races each weekend on back-to-back weekends. It was nuts for sure, and of course, I was on the road for 3 weeks rather. You get home, you're in the office trying to catch up on accounting, on emails, on whatever it may be. We were able to knock out the USPKS podcast, the debrief last week. David, of course, quarterbacking that one and giving us all the information from what happened at Ocala. So my turn to talk a little bit about what I was able to see in Sonoma, California. It was a great start to the season for the Challenge crew, another big jump for the first race. And again, not exactly the numbers. I think they would like to have had a little more at the finale, but still more numbers than last year. And really growth and stability have kind of come to characterize what Andy Saisman's crew has put together since making the move to Rock last year. This week's show presented by Streeter Superstands. With decades of experience and an unbeatable reputation, Streeter Superstands leads the way in quality, innovation, and affordable lifts, stands, and an amazing selection of trailer and shop accessories to make you the envy at every event. From local club racers and regional warriors to the top pro teams, racers demand the best, and Streeter Superstands build it. Roll with the best and shop online at streetersuperstands.com. All right, Cole, we'll bring you in. I guess when this is all said and done, we can kind of take a little bit of a deep breath and call the dual weekend double-double complete because that was I don't want to say a rough stint, but it was one of those ones where we're just going back and forth. And because of the double-double, we added more to each weekend as well, or each week as well, because we had to knock out a couple of podcasts every time we got home. And as we said from that last one, you came home, I came home, we were home for a couple of days and right back on the road. So it's nice to take a deep breath and kind of settle into a little bit of a home stint before we head to the SCUSA Spring Nationals at the first weekend.
Yeah, and I would call it a success. We were able to accomplish the feat of the dual weekend double-double. We provided the best coverage possible we could from all 4 events that we attended. And it was a little hard doing it cross country as we did. You went to Texas and then California, and luckily I stayed on East Coast, so it was a little bit easier for me travel wise. But still, it was a success. We each got to see 2 really good events. I got to get rained on both times. You just once, I think. Did it rain in Texas?
A little, yeah. We didn't get here. It was just super cold in Texas.
Right. So you got one of 2 that was rain, but you got to race.
4 different organizations as well, too, which I thought was cool, right? Superkarts USA and Texas Pro Kart Challenge, Challenge of the Americas, WKA, and USPKS. It was a great cross section, I think, for us over a 2-week period.
It was good to again, we're working with 4 different race directors. We're working with 4 different probably scoring people, 4 different announcers. Yeah, that's true.
I didn't announce it at Challenge at all. I thought I'd get on the mic a bit with Chappie, but I did not. I was so busy running around. No, it was Eric Brennan, Tim Cohen, myself in Texas, and Chappie, Tim Chapman in Coda. So 4 different voices as well on the EKN Radio Network. I love it.
Yeah, you don't typically see that in a lot of other sports.
No, that's very true. The interesting thing too, David, when you sit back and look at it as well, we were kind of forced to expand a little bit ourselves. We had a conflict, I think, once, and I think you stuck on the our EKN live page, ekartingnews.com/live. And then I was with I was in Texas at the final round a couple of years ago for the Texas Pro Kart Challenge, and they set up their own Mixler feed that we were able to use. we decided to change it around a little bit. Now, like ESPN, like some of the bigger networks, now we have 2 different channels. We have EKN 1 and EKN 2, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
So 2 opportunities.
Coyan
right?
loved calling it the deuce. We were on the.
It's the Ocho.
Well, we should have went with EKN Live 8, and we could have called it the Ocho. Yeah, that would have been great.
That would have been funny. We should have called it. But I like it. It's the deuce. I like that. All right, I like it. That's good stuff. All right, let's jump into this debrief now as we talk about the final rounds of the Challenge of the Americas. And unlike the last debrief we did, the USPKS, the opening round from Ocala, where David kind of ran the whole thing. I just kind of offered in, asked some questions, and kind of maybe just moderated it because David was there. David, you were at the first 2 rounds of the Challenge of the America, so you're going to be able to add a lot of insight into terms of the championship battle we're talking about, right?
Correct.
We're going to talk championships at the end of every class. You were there for the first 2 rounds, so you know the players. You can talk a little bit about the history from the last couple of races. Obviously, you've been with the Challenge of the Americas for many years. You and I normally are there together, and ideally, if schedules work out the way we've hoped for 2020, we'll be back there again with Andy Saisman and the crew. Me back on the mic and you doing the EKN Trackside Live. But, bottom line, David, the event was April 5th, 6th, and 7th, the 12th year of the challenge. And, obviously Andy Saisman making that move, saw the writing on the wall with Rotax. Where am I going to go with this thing? The numbers were starting to fall a little bit as they were nationally for Rotax. And, of course, they just made their kind of comeback this weekend are these next couple of months with the guys at J3 and the Stars and Stripes and the RTX karting group that ran the All-Star finals down in Houston. Andy looked at it and said, "Hey, I want to go the Rock route." And second year with the Rock, David, before I jump into my overview, you saw it. Great numbers to start the season. We fell off a little bit, but all in all, I think Andy's move to the Rock and kind of California's picking up of the Rock has worked out really well for the challenge.
It's not only the move, but you're going into the 12th. This is the 12th season for the challenge, and people respect and understand what they get when they go to a Challenge of the Americas event. And I think that's a big part of what brings people to the program. You could go any engine platform, I think you would still get people coming to Challenge of the Americas just for the fact that they know that Andy puts on a great program. Taylor Jocelyn on the track. You got Shelby up and scoring. You got everybody doing behind the scenes stuff. Everything gets done right. But the Rock engine platform provided that quick, easy shift over to something that was similar yet a little different, but where people could go and be able to race not only at the challenge but other places throughout the year as well.
I think that's key. I think you're right. The fact that it wasn't just grabbing an engine out of nowhere and saying this is what we're going to run. It was something that was, number one, starting to get a little bit of momentum in certain places. It's obviously a well-known product line, the Vortex. You did mention again the consistency and the stability in the platform, the officials that Andy have been in place for a long time. You talked about Taylor Jocelyn. You got his guys on the track in Mark Mission and Angel Mata. You got Guy Kesey on the grid. You got Shelby Jocelyn in timing and scoring, and just there's never ever an issue when Shelby's doing timing and scoring. Probably the single best timing and scoring person we've ever seen. Let me jump into the actual overview before we look at some numbers. Rain, as it always does, seems to play a bit of a role in these finale events in Sonoma. It's hard to have a race in Sonoma in April and not you're going to play with rain. I had a couple people actually message me, Dave, saying they haven't seen the track look that green in a long time. The grass was beautiful. They got a lot of rain over the whole winter, so the place looked great.
Yeah, it's always good to go there even though you have to struggle with the rain. The view and as you said, it's green. It's not brown like when you go there in May, because by the time you go there in May, everything's brown again because the weather turns to spring and towards summer temperature, so it gets warmer and it dries out. But yeah, it's always good to see the green in the Sonoma Valley.
And it was gorgeous. Paddock was full as usual. I think you probably have a club race with 40 people and it would still feel full in the paddock because it's probably one of the smallest paddocks we go to in terms of a national level facility. All in all, from what I was able to see when I wasn't in the seat, racing super clean all weekend. there was some minor issues here and there, but otherwise the racing was pretty solid. As I said, we had some rain early. I actually got a chance. I drove on the weekend as well. We haven't mentioned that yet. I got a chance, thanks to Andy Saisman and Jimmy Gregory, to get a chance to drive in the 100cc Masters class. Andy offering up a Burrell for me to drive with the Rock VLR 100, which, man, I love the engine package. Every time I got in the cart, I was happy. It was fun, great power. That bottom end grunt that I love. That just ripping off the corners. It was a ton of fun. So I was kind of going back and forth. I was in the seat as I think it was senior shifter was wrapping up. We were right after them. So I was, of course, watching the session and jumped in the seat. And then right after us, the 100cc senior and masters class was junior rock. So I missed a bit of the start of that as I was waiting in the scale line. So, I didn't see some of the start of junior. I did see some wrecks in front of me. If there was issues in front of me in the smaller 100cc senior class. But I got on the track on Thursday. I arrived pretty early, was able to get a couple of sessions in on Thursday afternoon, did some limited running on Friday because there was a bit of moisture on Friday. Same went for Saturday morning. We'll talk about it, but they actually called it a rain race during Saturday morning's drivers' meeting, so it was kind of up to you if you wanted to go with slicks or rains, and rains were the way to go at one point. All in all, though, Sunday, low 70s, sun came out on Sunday. It was gorgeous. A great way to cap things off. Rain felt like it was coming in potentially on Sunday afternoon, but it didn't, which was great. But bottom line, David, you can talk about this as well. You know this. Just a great vibe in the paddock. We had there was a fun atmosphere at the podiums, capping things off, handing out the tickets to the Rock Cup International Final, to Rock the Rio. Andy was also passing out entries to the Rock California Series. A couple of the classes, third place got a set of tires and a can of fuel. You know what the vibe is like. Andy kind of makes sure that there's that feel being at a challenge race. It was just fun being in the paddock.
Well, don't forget Sunday's drivers meeting with the all the prizes they give out there, including a lot of stuff from acceleration. PTK, not to mention tires. Also, that's the big prize that everybody wants that they give out at the end there. So yeah, it's always a good vibe. It's the first time I've missed a challenge race since we've been going there since 2012. So I was a little upset I didn't get to be at the finale. I always love the finale.
Well, just so you know, David, and I'll bring this in, wearing my full suit, of course, because I ended up getting on the podium in our 4-driver class. I had to be David Cole when I was there, right? Not only was I David Cole writing the race report up and posting everything to social media, Sean Buer was supplying us. He was coming in and out, supplying me with photos. We had the videos. We did the videos, quick video interviews for qualifying, which I thought was really cool. I had to be David Cole at the podium too. I was Andy's bitch. I was handing him all the trophies and everything like that. I had to be the guy. I did. Yeah, but we missed you.
Well, I'm sure you didn't quite live up to my standards, and I'm sure Andy can tell me a little bit more about exactly how you filled in that position. Because being the podium guy, there's a lot going on, and he yells at me a lot. So I'm sure he yelled at you a lot.
A couple times was, hey, I'm like, all right, I got you. Don't worry. Actually, we handled it pretty good, bud. We did. I think Andy and I did a good job with it. It was solid.
I think we need somebody to replace us doing that, because we don't get to enjoy the podiums.
That's true.
Watching from the side. I mean, you get to, because you're typically announcing, so you kind of get to enjoy it from that aspect. But
and I didn't have to. Chappie handle it.
Yeah,
I didn't have to do the podiums, which was great.
Well, of course. So you had to fill in my role because your role was already taken.
Yeah, and your role, from what I know now, is to drink. Keep sipping your drink between passing trophies. That's, I think, what all I really did.
Well, okay, then you understand the reason why I do it.
I know the rule. All right, folks, let's have a look at the numbers here as we're giving you the overview of the final round of the 2019 Challenge of the Americas. Of course, that event taking place at Sim Raceway Performance Karting Center in Sonoma on April 5th, 6th, and 7th. Numbers all total, 96 drivers entered. Now, number one, you see 96 and you go, all right, well, you didn't break the 100 mark, which is kind of that one mark, then 150 is the next, then 200. But I think the more bottom line, and Andy Saisman talked about this at the drivers' meeting, is the amount of growth that they've been able to have. Last year, the finale, 83 drivers. The year before that, or that last year, 78 drivers in the rock category. Remember, last year they ran the Briggs 206 drivers. So all told, there was actually 9 more Rock entries at this year's event. So, 15% growth is what you're seeing. And, Dave, we sat down and talked to Andy about it. If you could have 10% growth a year, that's key. 100 becomes 110. 110 becomes 121, and so on and so on. And I think Andy's thinking about that 10 to 15% growth. Start of the season was really good numbers down in California, but up in NorCal, 96 to finish, I think there was one spot. It was interesting when I go through the numbers. One interesting drop, which really surprised me. But then overall, though, the growth at 10 to 15% is what you're trying to get.
And I think one thing that Andy and the Rock program has going with them is everybody has these engines now. And so now new people are going to be, so that's where the growth happens, is bringing in new people to the program, because we have the series regulars. And a lot of times you're going to get guys who have been gone for a couple of years that might come back. And that's key in growing as well too. Masters category is one of them. We had a big field at Cal Speed, but we didn't get anybody to keep coming back to the second and third events. So I think that category has room for growth. Junior Rock is another category. We have a lot, there's a lot of junior racers in the California area. There should be no reason why we can't get that class back up to 20s, into the 20s. And then of course, we have Mini Rock that's pretty solid. That was pretty solid throughout the season.
Oh, no, yeah. 15 drivers in Mini Rock, up 2 from last year. Micro Rock up a couple. They had 4 drivers in Micro Rock. Junior was the big drop, 9 down. They were 19 drivers last year, only 10 at the finale this time, which surprised me. 15 drivers in Senior Rock made for a great race. 11 total in Masters with some really good talent. The addition of, as I said, of 100cc Senior and 100cc Master, 5 drivers in the Senior class. I believe all of them on the IAME KA100. It was us drivers in the 100cc Masters class, 3 of us on the VLR 100 Rock. Just a tremendous package, and I think you're going to see that continue to start to build. And then, David, I think the high spot, of course, and it's really exciting for the guys at the challenge, is the shifter numbers. 11 drivers in the Masters class, 21 drivers in Shifter Rock. That, for me, with the quality of the drivers that were there, I think that's probably a high spot. You throw back in, the Junior Rock and get it back to 20, maybe get the Senior to 20, and all of a sudden, you're around the corner, you're at 120. And then you're at 130. So just a little bit more momentum and have the guy. We always do this, right? You look at the actual points from the challenge. How many guys actually ran at least one race? And if you can get the people that ran one race to run all 3, you're at 150.
Right.
And then you've hit that mark.
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal, is to keep, and that's again, less is more. 3 events. The challenge has always been 3 events, except for I think the first year they might have had 4. It was a little interesting season, but it's typically been 3 events, and less always produces more. And I think, again, the transition from the Rotax to the Rock, it's growing, and hopefully we'll be back to those numbers when the challenge was at its peak, and we're getting there. And as you said, if we get those guys to come to more than just one race and come to either 2 or all 3, it will be there.
When I wrap up this podcast at the very end, that's something I'm going to talk about a little bit in the wrap-up. So, folks, stick with us. We got more to come. That's the overview of the opening round of the Challenge of the Americas, or the finale of the Challenge of the Americas, our opening segment here on our 47th episode of the EKN Debrief. Rob Howden alongside David Cole. Stick with us. After this, we'll go into the Paddock Pass. Are you looking for a new kart shop? One that treats you like you're an important customer? If so, look no further than Acceleration Kart Racing. At Acceleration, customer service is number 1. We are a full-time karting business, not a hobby or an afterthought. We have all the products you're looking for, from kid karts to shifters, safety to speed. We strive to offer our customers the best products, prices, and service. At Acceleration Kart Racing, we're always here when you need something for your racing program. Located in Las Vegas, Acceleration is stocked with a wide range of products. We've been helping racers get the right parts for over 16 years. Acceleration has everything that a kart racer needs, From turnkey carts to safety equipment, engines, and more, stocking all of the leading kart racing brands. Here's a taste of the products that we carry every day. CRG, Tony Kart, Bennett, Rotax, Honda, Miami, MG Tires, Vinco, Bridgestone, Mojo, Alpine Stars, Sparco, Ribtech, and EVS, Tillett, Micron, Alfano, Bell, Arai, Zamp, KG, Sniper, SweetTech, and K&N. It doesn't matter where you live in the country. We will get you what you need so you can get back on the track. Acceleration has a sufficient supply of products to ensure that your order can be shipped the very same day. Our knowledgeable staff is available to help customers 6 days a week, and ordering online is open 24 hours a day at shopakr.com. For visitors and locals in the Las Vegas area, Acceleration has a large showroom full of the best kart racing products available. Come on in and check it out. To find out more about what Acceleration has to offer, visit shopakr.com. Again, shopakr.com. And make sure to sign up to be on our mailing list to receive the latest updates and promotions that we send throughout the season. Again, we're a one-stop shop. shopakr.com. If the dream is IndyCar, set your target on the road to Indy presented by Cooper Tires. Our ladder system is designed to take drivers through 3 rungs of competition. The first step is the Cooper Tires USF 2000 Championship, which features a carbon tub Tatis chassis, 180 horsepower, and paddle shift sequential gearbox. Boost the USF 2000's output to 280 horsepower for the newly named Indy Pro 2000 program, the second rung of the road to Indy, formerly known as Pro Mazda. Add in increased grip and aero downforce, and the Tatis PM18 becomes an incredible racing machine. The final step before IndyCar is the Indy Lights Championship presented by Cooper Tires. The Dallara IL-15 boasts a whopping 450 horsepower. This car itself has helped train a third of the grid expected for the 2019 IndyCar Series. At all 3 levels, you race at premier venues on the same dance card as IndyCar. Showcase your skills under the watchful eyes of IndyCar scouts and owners. The program is unprecedented around the world, offering the opportunity to climb the ladder with over $2 million in scholarships to the champions in USF 2000, Indy Pro 2000, and Indy Lights. Former karters fill the roster of Road to Indy graduates in IndyCar, like Spencer Piggott, Zach Beach, Jack Harvey, Ed Jones, Matthias Laced, Felix Rosenquist, Colton Herta, and 2018 Indy Lights champion Pato O'Ward. Recent graduates like Kyle Kirkwood are in the middle of their journeys right now as well. Follow in their footsteps. If you want to race IndyCar, there's only one choice. The Road to Indy, presented by Cooper Tires. Welcome back to the EKN Radio Network and our 47th episode of the EKN Debrief. My name's Rob Howden, joined by David Cole, as we present our review of the Challenge of the Americas finale for 2019, rounds 5 and 6 up in Sonoma, California. Time to jump into the Paddock Pass, where I'll give you some information that really isn't just about race reports, more about some of the stuff happening within the paddock and within the event itself. This edition of the Paddock Pass presented by NitroKart. By now, you've probably heard that NitroKart, the dominant force in the cadet ranks, now offers a full-size chassis too. Add in the previously introduced Kid Kart, and there is now a NitroKart for everyone. While NitroKart will always focus on the cadet classes, all of their chassis are built with the same quality and performance as the class-leading cadet chassis and are ready to win. Arrive and drive programs are available for all major national events. Go to nitro-kart.com for more details. All right, David, let's jump into the Paddock Pass. You never talk about this ever, ever during a race weekend. But when it's all said and done, you talk about the fact that there's no red flags, right? You never want to jinx it. But a clean weekend of racing, as I had said earlier. But, you know, I think any promoter, Andy Saisman being one of them, when that last checkered flag flies and the last driver is rolled into the scale line, there's that big sigh of relief that there was no red flags. The ambulance didn't roll even one time. And that is always something that a promoter and anybody wants to see.
I think that's the case for all three events for 2019 for the challenge. I think
seriously,
I think in Tucson, I can fully remember that we had no red flags. I'm pretty sure probably 100%, 99% sure that we didn't have any red flags in Cal Speed as well too.
We got to confirm that with Andy, but because that would be amazing if they went through the entire challenge without a red flag. That's because obviously racing, we race hardcore. People, you're wheel to wheel. Man, that's awesome to hear. That's fantastic. We talked a little bit about the rain on Friday and Saturday. Made things interesting, I think, for the drivers and the mechanics. I was, of course, working with Eric Thompson's at FTK, Full Throttle Karting, and when it came, my focus, David, on the weekend was the EKN Trackside live coverage. That was it, and if that came first, that came first. And he and I were kind of talking about it on Friday, and I was going to drive in the afternoon. I just said to him, I said, don't worry about it. I won't go out for this session. We're not going to go back and forth during a Friday practice session like everybody else was, right? Making sure that they had the setup right for the rains and the setup right for the dries. And I didn't want him thrashing back and forth. But for people that weren't focused on the EKN Trackside Live program, that's what they had to do. And how many times, David, have you heard somebody say, just figure it out? Like either rain, or dry. Mechanics hate it when you go back and forth. It's just so
it's fun. It's fun for us to watch because you get those sessions that it's okay. Do we go wet or do we go dry, or do we go dry or do we go wet? Those are fun for us, but yes, for the mechanics, it's a pain in the ass. And yes, I typically, and if I was probably racing too, I would typically want just one weather condition throughout the day. I wouldn't want it to go back and forth, or at least if I know it's going to dry out, I want, I got that at least half-hour timeline where I know it's going to dry out, or, just I know it's going to, if it starts raining right after my first race, I know it's going to be wet for the second race type.
We had one class. I'm not sure if it was a shifter class. It might have been shifter, whatever it was during Saturday. I think it was probably in the pre-finals where one driver came up with rains on it, and the track was still a little bit wet. Damp, let's put it that way. He came up with rains. Definitely was not the case. They went out there and started blasting around, and 2-3 laps in, it was full dry line, and that driver was 2 seconds off the pace. So you always kind of roll the dice when you're trying to get lucky with hoping it rains again or doesn't dry up, whatever it may be. But as I had said before, the Saturday was actually declared a rain race at the drivers' meeting. So again, it was your choice at that point. Anytime you go to Sonoma, tic-tac-toe, that kind of right combination heading down out of turn one is going to be interesting. Drivers like to be very aggressive there. And race director Taylor Jocelyn, he wanted to put some limits. He didn't want guys launching all the way over it. So he put a cone in tack in the middle. Now, what I loved it, he brought the tape measure right out, David, and actually tape measured right from the side of the racing surface right to the edge of the cone at 60 inches. So we all know that we have a 55-inch wide go-kart, right? Then you get measured afterwards, so you don't have the too wide on the track width. So if you hit the cone, none of your kart was on the racing surface. And so to do that, if you hit the cone, then it was a 10-second penalty. And there were guys that tried to fight it. And there were guys, there was a couple drivers that hit it like 4 or 5 times. Just like, what are you doing? It was interesting, but there were drivers that couldn't figure it out. But the bottom line was it really played a good role in making sure guys weren't exceeding track limits in that part of tic-tac-toe.
Imagine that. And a race director finally putting in track limits.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, he probably could have done it at the first event too, when in the rain, but again, it's not like you're not going off surface. You're just going outside the actual line, when we talked about Cal Speed and the rain lines and stuff like that, but
so 15 feet off the rain.
So it's a little different situation because again, it's the same surface. It's just, you're going outside the line.
It's a chicane too.
Yeah.
It's a chicane, right? Yeah.
This is a curb. This is like what you can relate it to Coda and the Indy cars going off over the curb and Homestead even going over the curb and onto another surface that's not the actual racing surface. And where this is like what we saw at Grand Junction, where guys were flying over actual grass, because I'm sure with it being green, there was actually grass in tic-tac-toe this year.
Well, one thing I always worry about is, you could stop it by putting a plastic barrier in there, right? But then somebody gets together and you end up having somebody go nose into a barrier. And they're significantly heavy. You're not going to put water in it, obviously. It's just a barrier. So if it's windy, it blows all over the place. But you don't want someone going head on into a barrier, because there's potential damage, right? So
well, it's a safety hazard.
It's a safety issue. Correct. So you put that cone down, and you mark, and the fact that he marked, and trust me, he was very adamant at the driver's meeting. It's 60 inches out, guys. If you hit it, with your 55-inch wide cart, if you hit it, you've lost
control. Basically, is what he's telling you.
Yeah. And a bunch of it was. I don't think it was any guys. Well, a couple of guys in senior maybe, but mostly the junior guys that were really struggling with it, trying to jump over tic-tac-toe, and William Ferguson got nailed with it one time as well. So. I liked it. Great approach, safe, because it was just a cone. And maybe I'd like to see that maybe happen more places. It probably could have happened in Homestead at the SCUSA race, as you said. You're not going to do it with IndyCar at COTA, but I like it. I'm not a big fan of letting the track go wide open like that. The track's there for a reason. It's designed to have to make it through tic-tac-toe, which I think is a great part of the racetrack. I enjoyed it. I didn't do it that well. Andy Saisman sent me a video. Apparently, I ripped the bottom of my seat out. So I was probably not doing it as good as I could have. But you know what? Let's wrap up this paddock pass with an interesting thing, because for me, as you're in the paddock, I thought this was super cool. You got your pro classes, right? You've got your senior rock, you've got your shifter rock, where it's the drivers who are between 14, 15, and whatever, 18, 19, whatever it may be. But then you get a couple of veteran drivers who still have the skill set, who are still in the shape you need to be to run with these young guns. And I'm talking about Ronnie White in shifter rock, and I'm talking about Wesley Boswell, who's now working with Eddie Shimon, who the Shimon said, "Hey, Wesley, how about you keep driving so we got data?" Here's two guys. White's 40 plus, I don't know, maybe 41 or 40 or 41. Boswell, I'm not sure. He's got to be in his mid-30s. I'm not even sure how old Boswell is. Both of these...
Going to be 35 pretty soon.
And both of these guys could easily run the Masters categories and be winning Masters races, but instead run the senior class. Ronnie White ends up, we'll get into it in the race report. Ronnie White ends up sweeping the weekend, and it's his home track, of course, but sweeps the weekend, wins the championship in senior rock against some badasses in senior shifter. And Wesley Boswell was running up front all weekend long, winning sessions, qualifying on pole. It just, for me, I just think to see those veteran drivers out there showing what they've got was an awesome storyline.
Well, I don't think Ronnie White is much of a surprise for a lot of the California drivers, because they see him racing typically, 5 to 6, 7 times a year, especially, along in California. I think Boswell's more of the surprise because they typically see him yelling at drivers and on the sidelines and driver coaching more than they see him actually driving. I think he's done a couple Supernats here or there, nothing, significant results, but still, a very sound driver racing in S1, on a one-off type deal, which is really hard to do, as we know. But yeah, to come, the funny thing is at Tucson, it was like, man, I didn't even know Boswell was that good. And it's like, really? How do you not know who Wesley Boswell is?
On the cover of Shifter Car Illustrated magazine.
Well, but again, a lot of these kids who are in the junior and senior categories weren't even born when he won that Supernats race. So that's true. That's kind of the issue. When you don't see, you don't know. So, you don't see, just like, teams, you don't know what happens inside those tents unless you actually see what goes on firsthand. So it's kind of, the same thing with a lot of these coaches that, a lot of people have never seen race. But, those of us who have been in the sport for 15 years or more understand where these guys came from.
That's a great point. Yeah, we'll have to start. I'll have to scan some Shifter Card Illustrated covers so that we can throw them up there for some of these young kids in the mini and junior categories, even some of them in senior. Because think about it. You're right, David. A 14 or a 15-year-old senior was born, but after Boswell won at the Supernats, right?
Yeah.
If you're 15, you were born in 2004, or could be 2004. And when did Boswell win?
2003.
and 3. So he's racing against guys that weren't even born when he
won the Supernats.
When he won the Supernats. That's crazy. That's awesome. Listen, I mentioned this before, and that's the same thing because we do age, and this is bound to happen. I was telling someone on the weekend that here I am. The issue with me, right? And I'm all for Masters racing. It's fun. I'm 50 now. But when I first got started in the sport covering races in 93, 94, and 95, here in Ontario, the drivers that I covered who were in the cadet classes, they called it novice in Canada, but novice at 8, 9 years of age, I have to race against them now in Masters. That's an issue.
And they're having kids who are now racing.
And now they're having kids that are now racing. Yeah, no doubt about that. You're right. It's the second generation, third generation stuff that makes me feel a little older. But all good. I got a chance to race that. It's at Sonoma, so you always feel young when you get behind the wheel. Folks, let's go to our next break here. When we come back, it's time to start talking about the actual racing that happened at Sonoma. We'll go through all the categories, of course, starting things off with the senior and junior rock categories. We'll talk about shifters. That'll come up after this break.
If you want to drive the best, drive a CRG. Our countless race wins and championships prove this fact, including taking the KZ Finals at the SCUSA Super Nationals and the CIK World Championships in both 2016 and 2017. Our material is second to none. After years of independent American importers, CRG is now managed directly by the factory and run out of our state-of-the-art headquarters in Texas. CRG Nordam is the American arm of the CRG factory in Italy, and we're serious about success. We stock a wide variety of parts in all of our chassis, from the CRG Hero for the mini categories, to the Heron for tag racing, the Road Rebel for gearbox competition, and the new FS4, which has been designed specifically for American 4-cycle Briggs racing. If you're ready to step up to the national level, do it with a factory race team that competes across the USA. CRG Nordam is a full factory effort with the best personnel and the finest equipment. We're serious about winning, and you should be too.
Join rockers at the upcoming Rock Fest in Biloxi, Mississippi, taking place at Finish Line Performance Karting May 30th to June 2nd on Biloxi's beachfront. Tickets to the Rock International Final will be awarded to race winners, with the entire podium receiving Rock the Rio entries. You won't want to miss it. Visit rockcupusa.com for more information and to register for Rockfest Battle at the Beach.
Welcome back to the EKN Debrief here on the EKN Radio Network. Rob Howden and David Cole providing the review of the final rounds of the Challenge of the Americas, rounds 5 and 6, up at Sim Raceway Performance Karting Center in Sonoma, California. Time to jump into the race report today, presented by Bell Racing USA. Be confident in the risks you take on track, knowing that you're not taking a risk with your safety. Bell Racing USA designs and develops innovative, technically superior helmets to maximize protection and enhance driver performance. Curious why the world's best race car drivers use Bell? Bell Racing USA has the lightest helmets with the highest standards in all of motorsports. Check out the only CMR-rated all-carbon helmet in the world, the new KC7 Carbon CMR. Joined by the Youth GP.2 Youth, the KC7 CMR, and the RS7K for adults, you won't find a better product to keep you safe when behind the wheel. Check us out at www.bellracing.com and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. On their new account, it's Bell Racing USA HQ. Follow them on all 3 social media platforms. Very cool, actually, David. I actually used my new RS7 Carbon at the race. I had a new helmet from Bell. Got a chance to wear some cool new Sparko stuff that the guy sent over that I was able to test. The shoes were, it's unbelievably comfortable. I actually got a chance even to use the rain suit, which is badass. So, and I can say this, surprisingly, if you take care of it quickly, even the suit itself is a bit, the Sparko suit's actually kind of water resistant, because at least I know it's champagne resistant because I got hosed down by Jimmy Gregory.
I bet it smells though.
It actually wasn't bad. It beat it off decently. I beat it off, and then I was able to wipe enough of it off, so it didn't smell fantastic. But yeah, It's a Saturday champagne spray, which should never happen.
Saturday?
Never.
I thought that was Sunday.
He sprayed it on Saturday.
Oh, that's even better.
It's even worse.
I bet the trailer smelled like champagne.
Well, this is it. We're standing on the podium, and he's got the champagne, and know what he's going to do. And I'm trying to tell him, listen, you don't spray champagne on each other on Saturdays because there's 2 races. You never do it. Jimmy didn't care.
No.
I got hosed.
It's better to be champagne than Fireball.
That's very true. Very true. All right, this is the race report section. Let's go into the senior rock category. On Saturday, again, remember, this is when we had the wet. So everything was kind of mixed up a bit during that qualifying session on Saturday. Bajoy Garg, the quickest in the senior rock category. When things dialed in, though, David, for the pre-final, Jordan Redlin really stepped things up. He had great speed. By the time we got into the main event, we were dry. And Redlin led the first 15 laps. And to be honest, again, this category, I was at this point done with my racing, was back in, was getting, I got caught up with all the social media results postings, and in watching it, I'm like, Redlin's going to win his first challenge race. He looked that good out front. The main's 22 laps long, but the driver on the move was Jake Drew. Jake running a Cosmic with the guys from HRT, Stu Hayner's crew. And he was just on the move. He was the guy that was coming over and was working his way forward. He ends up getting by, takes over the lead. Jake Drew gets the win. Jordan Redlin in second. I know, tough for him. I know Daryl Redlin, his dad, kind of walked by on pit lane at Sonoma, as David will tell you. We're able to see everybody walking from the grid across to the scales, and he was just so close to getting that first win. But interesting, and you can talk a bit about it, David, how it's gone through the season for Cooper Becklin. Here's a kid that we've watched come through, the mini, the junior ranks. He's had a great season coming. He was the fast driver to get those bonus points. Actually started in the 7th position, got fast lap, ended up coming up to 3rd. So Becklin with a 3rd place finish on the Saturday, I think crucial to how things were going to change for him in terms of trying to win the championship on Sunday.
For sure. And that's the one thing that we've seen throughout the senior season in this series is a number of drivers that have just stepped up. And, Drew getting the victory is a good step up for him. And as we saw, Redlin's been fast at every track we've gone to as well, too. And then you throw in Becklin there coming up with fast lap of the race. That's 3 different drivers that definitely had the opportunity to be triumphant. This time it just happened to be Drew.
As we go through the race report, we're going to talk in a number of categories about drivers who actually came into Sonoma and went and grabbed the championship. It wasn't a deal where they were going back and forth and people were winning different sessions. And, when we talk about Derek Wang, and we're going to talk about Cooper Becklin, same thing. Went out and Ronnie White went out and dominated the weekend to grab that championship. And I think Becklin, not so much dominant, but was really good on Saturday, which sets up for, the opportunity on Sunday. You can make a huge mistake on Saturday, and maybe that becomes your drop race, and that just puts you on your back feet, right? On your heels. You got to be able to, you want to make sure you have a good Saturday, kind of frees you up a little bit for Sunday, and that was kind of the way for Becklin. Sunday morning, we're dry. Boswell, as we talked about, steps up, puts it on the pole, which I loved because that was just that exclamation point of, guys, I'm here on the Tony Kart. I'm ready to rock. He qualifies. Pole.
Yeah, but
what?
But he is familiar with the track. I mean, come on. It's not a big surprise.
Yes, he's won there.
Tucson was a little bit more of a surprise because he hasn't raced there probably ever.
But listen, is there a track on the challenge that he hasn't been there with when he was with Rawlinson Performance Group? Just
good point.
Pounding out laps, right? Testing and driver coaching. He knows all these
good
tracks.
Point.
He knows
good
all
point.
these tracks.
Good
but
point.
yes, he's had success at Sonoma before. So it's not like we went to a track he's never been to and he was a rock star. I just like the fact that he qualified on pole and you're able to walk out, you're able to walk out of the scales with that P1 position. Now, he holds that spot for the pre-final as well, ends up winning the pre-final. But when we do jump into the to the main event, Boswell was strong. There's no doubt about it. He out of the box, led early. Everything was fine. But again, talking about people stepping up to try to win a championship. For me, it was Becklin. Because, Becklin starts well, but falls back to 4th early. Now, you know how these races, they're 22 laps long, right? As long as you're decently into that lead pack, within a couple of seconds, 3 seconds, whatever it may be, up front, you can let the cart come in, settle in, and then go to work. And essentially that's what Becklin did, right? He fell back to fourth, as I said, but then just kind of once that cart came in, David, he just started working forward. He's able to, and he gets to Boswell before even the halfway point. Like we're not talking later in the race. He was able to get there, slip by Boswell on lap number 9, and goes on to score the win. And for me, there's a lot of great drivers, David. You were there at the first 2 rounds at Cal Speed in Tucson. There's a lot of great drivers in that senior rock category. And to see a kid like Becklin, who, was kind of a top 5 guy in the mini and then the same in junior, really has come into his own, getting a lot of seat time. And that he ends up winning the championship on the strength of, the great runs he had. Second on Saturday. He wins on Sunday, wins the ticket to the Rock Cup International Final. But, this is a guy that really has come into his own and to beat some really impressive drivers.
Well, it was kind of a similar scenario he had in Tucson where he had to come up and catch Jake Drew, caught Jake Drew, passed him for the lead, and then was able to secure it for the victory. And so it's similar situation. But again, as you said, Becklin, the only driver to stand on the podium 5 times in the senior category. So that alone helps definitely in the championship chase and put him P1 in the title hunt. So, anytime you stand on the podium 5 of 6 races, you're going to be in the hunt for the championship.
Especially in that class, right? With that kind of competition. Like you said, there's multiple different winners and just a lot of great drivers in that senior class. And for me, again, you look back at Becklin, 2016 in the challenge, he was running in Minimax. Like we're talking 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. He finished 4th overall in Mini in 2016. He was 22nd in his junior max debut. Didn't run the opening round, so let's throw that out. 5th last year in junior, and his debut year in senior, and he comes out over a stout field to win the championship. And he's going to represent the challenge at the Rock Cup International Final this year. That's it. I'm really interested in seeing what he does when he gets to start to Italy, to South Garda for this year's Rock Cup International Final. What's he going to do, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's good to see, like you said, the progression, because again, he wasn't a standout driver in cadet and junior. So to see him step up this year, it's definitely a breakthrough performance for him this winter season. So
Becklin does get the win, gets by Boswell, as I said, on lap number 9. Colby Dubato actually coming through to 3rd to cap the podium. All in all, a great season of racing for the senior rock class. And again, with 15 drivers on the grid, you add a half dozen, all of a sudden you're over that 20 mark, and it gets even tougher and tougher. And I expect that we'll see that throughout the entire program in 2020. Moving now to Junior Rock, David. A lot of the times we go to these Winter Series events, someone's going to hit the mark, someone's going to get in the groove, and they're going to be up front for a majority of the year. William Ferguson having a really good season, running with Austin Elliott at Speed Sense Motorsports. He qualifies on pole on Saturday in the tougher conditions. Ethan Ho ends up winning the pre-final, but then we go racing in the main event. And the thing about turn 1, right? When you're running in the Clockwise National at Sonoma, it's that run kind of up the hill to turn 1, off camber, right-hander, back down the hill. Stuff can happen in turn 1, and it did. It kind of got a little crazy. Ferguson didn't have the best pre-final, so he started actually back in the 5th position. Early on, Liam Lech able to go to the lead. Then Nolan Siegel actually took the point. Nolan, a driver we don't see him a lot on the national scene. Pretty much runs in the California program, runs in this the Rock California deal, or rather the Rock Sonoma program. He's done some Supercarts USA racing. Nolan actually running this year in USF 2000 in the Road to Indy with Newman Walks Racing. He was really impressive all weekend long. Was kind of in the fight there in the top 4. But the bottom line is very similar to what we saw from Becklin in the senior main event. Ferguson did the same thing. Started in the 5th position, settled in over the first couple of laps, let that cart come to him, then slowly started to move forward. Nolan Siegel, as I said, had taken the lead. And again, just like Becklin, Lap 9 was the move. He's able to make the pass on Siegel and then pulls away to a 3-second win over Ethan Ho. Liam Lech actually holding on to finish in that third position to cap the podium. But, again, when we talk about this and go, fast forward, look at the end of the weekend, Ferguson ends up getting the victory, the championship rather. And just like Bäcklund had a strong, and even stronger, obviously, he ends up with the win. But that strong round 5 performance that makes things a little easier on Sunday.
Well, the victory certainly helped position him to challenge for the title because Ethan Ho came into the weekend as a point leader. So anytime you get that victory on Saturday, it sets up for a little bit more pressure going into Sunday for both drivers.
Well, obviously with Ethan finishing in the second spot, it's not like, it wasn't a big title swing either. It was still very, very tight. On Sunday.
Well, 16 points is 16 points, right?
Yeah, it is. And that's what it comes down to, right? It comes down to the fact, then the fast lap, and then the points from the pre-final, which Ho was able to get. So, you're always just trying to give yourself that little gap that that you could finish second on Sunday if you had to, right? And still win the championship. Because again, you're always trying to win every race, but when you think macro, it's winning that championship and getting a chance to go to Italy to run at the Rock Cup International Final. Sunday was dry, beautiful, especially when the main events came around. It was gorgeous. Ferguson qualifying on the pole. He actually won the pre-final as well, but if you look at the results, Macy Williams actually P1. She starts the final from the pole position. Ferguson, one of the guys that got the 10-second penalty for exceeding track limits in tic-tac-toe. He was... Like I said, the junior drivers were getting pretty aggressive down there in that corner, and he got nabbed. I think he was the only guy in that pre-final that got nabbed as the leader. And David, with the pace he has, he probably didn't need to push that hard.
Well, if you're the first one to go through and you hit the cone, it opens it up for everybody else.
Right? I never thought about that. Everybody else could just plow through. You're right. In the main event, regardless. Ferguson able to get back to the lead. He wins by 9 seconds. They had that cart dialed in. They're running the Esprit chassis. Austin Elliott had it dialed in. He was coaching up William in a big way, and he wins by 9 seconds. Double weekend win at Sonoma. And again, talking about coming in and taking control of the championship on the final weekend, right? You said, David, they came in, he and Ethan Ho, so close coming in. But, and hey, listen, let's not take anything away from Ethan, right? What a breakout season he's had already. He was second on Sunday. Liam Lech again in third. But Ethan Ho threw everything he could at it. It was just Ferguson having almost a perfect weekend to a certain extent to be able to win that championship narrowly. In the end, David, Ferguson outscores Ho 235 points to 198 points on the Sonoma weekend. He wins by 14 points. But he was 37 more points on the weekend.
Well, both drivers had 6 podiums on the year.
Impressive.
So that's, that makes the championship that much closer. But as you said, when you have 3 wins to 1 win, the 3 wins typically gets the advantage, but not always. But that's, again, why, Ethan Ho did very well, was top 3. And it looked like all but 2 sessions, sorry. So top 3 in all but 2 sessions on the year.
Wow.
So six days of racing, top 3 throughout this whole series. So a very impressive performance by him. But just that victory on Sunday, that's what propelled Ferguson to the title. The
victory and grabbing those, when you're grabbing those fast lap bonuses as well. And that's 5 points. It's not 5 points. It's a 10-point swing. Right, if you can get the 5 points and somebody else doesn't get it, it ends up being a 10-point swing. But neat.
And then winning is a 20-point swing because it's 10-point difference there. Yeah. So it's at least it's decided between those two. There was nothing, no issues regarding tack or no issues regarding on-track calls. It was just decided between those 2 drivers.
Indeed, and kudos to William Ferguson for scoring that championship again. He will go to the Rock Cup International Final. just to kind of lay out the awards too, so I'm not doing it the whole time. So Rock Cup International Final for the primary rock categories. Second place with a entry ticket to the Rock the Rio event in Las Vegas in November. Third place got a entry into a Rock California Series event of their choice. And in the categories that didn't have the Rock Cup International Final tickets, the micro, 100cc, senior and masters, third place getting first place got the Rock the Rio, second place got the ticket to the Rock California event, and third place rather getting the tires and fuel. So a ton of stuff getting handed out, no doubt about that. So pretty.
So
cool
that means
stuff.
you got tires and fuel.
Well, no, that was for championships. No, you're right. I did get. Yeah, I finished third. No,
That's
right. there was only there was I was third overall in the championship.
I know,
no,
it doesn't count because you weren't there enough.
No, it was just again Jimmy Gregory winning the Rock the Rio in that one. We'll talk about that later. Let's move into Shifter Rock, because just you look at the names, David, in Shifter Rock. Number one, a great field of karts, but the names, guys that have won national events in all the different programs over the last number of years, right? You're talking about Danny Formal, Ronnie White. You're talking about Hunter Pickett. Zach Pedinici's turned into one of the the top drivers in the shifter kart ranks now. Some really solid talent in the shifter kart category. On Saturday, Ronnie White, in the tougher conditions, able to use his local knowledge. He qualifies on the pole. Danny Formal, running with Greg Bell at Leading Edge Motorsports on the Formula K. He wins the pre-final, and then away we go for the first main event of the weekend. Formal leads from the pole position, but Ronnie White, I just feel like he wasn't going to be denied on the weekend. His local track, he's got so much seat time there. He is most definitely on his game right now. His Ron White Racing crew, he had Rod Clenard under the tent. He's got Patrick O'Neill. There's a bunch of CRGs under Ronnie's tent, and he's just got good momentum right now. He gets by early with Formal, but then he's got to battle it with Hunter Pickett. Pickett going back and forth. They're swapping. They swapped the lead, I want to say 3 different times throughout it. But in the end, White ends up getting the lead on lap 15, drops the fast lap on lap 21 to get max points from that race. And again, like everybody else, I almost want to pull out the Chris Wheeler term, right, that we use at the Supernats for Situation Saturday, because that's what it was. It was that opportunity for Ron to get that gap again on Saturday, scoring a race win.
Yeah, going into the weekend, he came in leading the championship thanks to 3 straight runner-up performances, because there hadn't been a clear-cut dominant driver yet in the championship chase, with Pedinici winning 1 round, Nicky Hayes winning another, and then Hunter Pickett winning 2 after struggling really hard in Cal Speed. So White came in with a championship lead, and anytime you get a victory, that just builds on that momentum.
And to get that at your home track, the momentum built throughout the entire weekend. As I said, a pretty impressive run. Ronnie White's a fast lap to get that 5-point bonus as well on lap 21 of a 22-lapper. So the kart kept coming in through the entire race. Hunter Pickett ends up in second on the GFC, and Danny Formal rounding things out in the 3rd spot. Moving to Sunday, and again, pretty much the same drivers kind of in the hunt up front. Danny Formal qualifies on pole. Hunter Pickett gets the pre-final win to start on the pole position. He leads the opening lap, but Ronnie White, again, momentum, confidence. He wanted to go out and win this championship, and he took the lead early. Like, I want to say lap 1, lap 2, I think he was able to get by, was never challenged, ends up winning by over 4 seconds, and it was just one of those dominant runs that Ronnie White used to show us back in the early 2000s. He ends up cruising through, boom, wins by 5 seconds. Formal was in the fight, but an issue, a shift linkage failure, I believe it was, on lap number 10, puts him on the sidelines. So another good run for Pickett. And David, you mentioned some of his struggles from Cal Speed, where he really wasn't able to get out of the gate well. He capped it off strongly. A couple of good finishes, second in both the main events, to be right there in the championship. Cole Bailey, another one of Gary Carlton's drivers on the GFC chassis, was actually third on the racetrack. But again, like William Ferguson, he got hit with a 10-second penalty for exceeding track limits in tic-tac-toe. But in a category this close, that 10 seconds didn't drop him a spot. It actually dropped him from third all the way down to eighth. That hurts, especially, that category is so close, David. 10 seconds, and you go from you don't have that gap, right?
Right.
In the top.
Yeah, as you said, it's such a strong field that a lot of these guys are within tenth of a second per lap, next to each other. So it's not an easy penalty to take. That's for sure.
Tough pill to swallow, of course, for Cole Bailey. He would love to be on the podium, but that did move Enzo Prevost into the third spot from fourth. And I know that his coach Mamo Gately was pretty jacked up to see Enzo up on the podium. I know that Mamo's been working with him for a little while, and he's really turned up his game as well.
Yeah, he's another one of those guys that, like a Pedanici, where he's slowly getting there. Prevost ending the season fourth in the championship behind Pedanici, who was third, and then, of course, Hunter Pickett second. And as you said, Pickett had a good 4 rounds, winning 2 races in Tucson and then placing runner-up both times to White in Sonoma. So, if it wasn't for that Cal Speed weekend, these two would have been, if you eliminate that, these two were pretty head to head, are pretty evenly matched. And
it was a rough weekend overall, right? Was it not for Pickett in Cal Speed? Like, it's not like he could have just dropped the one race. It was
both rounds.
Yeah.
Again, it was that wet to dry situation, and then all wet on the next day. So it was just it wasn't necessarily anything against him, just one of those bad racing weekends.
So now we'll talk about White winning the championship. Big weekend for him. He grabs both wins, takes a hold of the crown with both hands. Here's the question, though. What's he going to do in Italy? He's going to the Rock Cup International Final. He's 41 years of age. I think we know it. I don't know if Ron White will ever run in the Masters category. I'm not sure if he'll ever want to do that. I'd like, we've seen so many good top drivers that were pro shifter drivers make that move, right, to the Masters class. Not sure if Ronnie's a guy that will do that. He could go over to South Garda and I think be like an easy shot at winning in the Masters class, right? Because he could run Masters if he wanted. Or does he go run senior rock shifter over at Garda and try to go for the overall win there?
Well, last year it was combined. Like, they recognized the top master driver in the shifter category, if I recall correctly. So, I don't know if they're going to separate that division out. So again, we saw last year, a little guy named Rubens Barrichello do very well in the shifter category. So I think, with Ron White's talents, he could definitely be a contender to be in the main event in just the regular rock shifter category going over there at the international final.
If they run them together, he should run as a Masters and then beat everybody as a Masters.
True. He has that option.
Right?
He has that option.
As long as it's the same weight. I don't know if it's the same weight or not. We'll confirm that. All right. Anyways, kudos to Ron White. Pretty impressive. Part of the group of drivers who went in to the Sonoma and they didn't just battle for the championship. They took control of the weekend and walked out with the crown, which I think was impressive. Let's cap off this first section of the race report. Again, the race report brought to you by Bell Racing USA with Master Shifter Rock. Great numbers there as well. 11 drivers in the category and a number of the pilots that we've seen up front in Masters racing over the last number of years. On Saturday, Nick Firestone ends up with the pole position in qualifying. But Rod Clenard on the CRG, again, running with Ron White Racing out here in the West Coast events, runs right with CRG Nordam at a lot of other races. He wins the pre-final. In the main, the interesting thing about the main is that Patrick O'Neill knows this racetrack. And Patrick, we've seen him run Supercarts USA events. He's, of course, jumped on board with the Rock program up at Sonoma. Clenard's good out of the gate. But so is Patrick O'Neill. O'Neill always gets strong starts. And Clenard able to go to the lead. Obviously starts on pole. He goes to the lead for the first 5 laps. But then O'Neill slips by, and then Ben Schermerhorn slips by as well. And Schermerhorn's always a great story, right? The family team on the Burrell Art chassis. They both get by on consecutive laps. O'Neill ends up going to grab the win. And again, huge win, super pumped. Local driver winning a challenge race at Sonoma. Schermerhorn ends up in the second spot, but Rod Clenard, David, still gets fast lap of the race, ends up finishing third to log important championship points.
Yeah, going into the weekend, Clenard was a standout driver in the championship chase. So obviously landing on the podium was probably the first goal for Rod, and then winning was the second goal. So, but anytime you go up against O'Neill at Sonoma, it's a hard challenge.
Yeah. That's it. Because he does, like Ronnie White, he knows this racetrack very well. Ron's, of course, got a great book of data for all his drivers in the shifter kart categories, and O'Neill really strong out of the box. We go to Sunday, and Clenard again, boom. Bonus points are always up for grabs in qualifying, and Rod just chipping away. You said he came into the weekend with a good hold on the championship, right? He had a great first 4 events. So he's just making sure that other guys don't get the points. He qualifies on pole. But really this day, I think more belonged to Ben Schermerhorn, because throughout the entire weekend, they were really down in that Burrell Art chassis, and Schermerhorn ends up winning the pre-final. As we go to the main event, Schermerhorn, of course, on the pole, O'Neill on the off pole. And as I said earlier, O'Neill, he's a beast off the line. Always gets a really solid start. He's able to get the whole shot and take over the lead. But Schermerhorn went right to the front, like immediately. Went to the lead, and he just paced the entire race. He didn't walk away, but he paced the entire race, ends up winning by 2 seconds. Rod Clenard actually was in the hunt in the pre-final, but early, I want to say midway through the pre-final, he ended up losing the water hose, coming through turn 1. And a number of drivers went off behind him when he flooded the track. But he starts 11th in the final, essentially at the very tail of the grid, for drivers in the Masters Shifter Rock category. Starts 11th, works his way back to 3rd throughout the weekend. So, a couple of third place finishes on the podium for both races, David. And Rod Clenard ends up winning the championship over Nick Firestone. Yeah, on the strength of 3 wins, but also 6 straight podium finishes.
Yeah, 6 straight podium finishes gonna definitely put you at the top of the standings for sure. And again, great job by Ben Schermerhorn picking up his first series victory. And again, if he would have gone to Cal Speed, he probably would have challenged Clenard there for the championship. If not, at least move Firestone or Chen off the championship podium.
Yeah, it's definitely going to shake some people up when they're thinking about next year. They're not going to miss any races. When you get a chance to go to Italy to run the Rock Cup International Final like Rod Clenard will this year, you can't miss races if you want to try to win a championship. All right, folks, there is our first 4 categories. I've got, 1, 2, 3, 5 more to go. We'll talk Masters Rock, 100cc Senior, 100cc Master, Mini, and Micro Rock when we get back from this break. In a sport where the difference between winning and losing is measured in hundredths of a second, you can't afford to leave anything on the table. You invest in the best equipment, the latest components, and top-of-the-line data acquisition systems. Anything to find one more tenth, right? I'll tell you right now, the best investment you could ever make is in yourself. If you want to improve your results, it's time for professional instruction and coaching at the Alan Rudolph Racing Academy. Located at the new state-of-the-art Speed Sports Racing Park just north of Houston, the Alan Rudolph Racing Academy uses the very best equipment, Burrell Art Karts. They offer half-day, 1-day, 2-day, and 3-day clinics. They have a one-on-one student-to-instructor ratio, and they will design a customized curriculum for each student. Alan Rudolph is one of the most respected people in the sport, and he has nearly 20 years' experience training drivers, including Chase Elliott, Neil Alberico, Austin Versteeg, and Sabre Cook, and rising stars like Pietro Fittipaldi. Train with a champion with over 30 years of racing experience to get proven results. Start off your season with a driver tune-up. Tune up your season with some driver coaching. Or get ready for the big races by training with the best. Reserve your dates now by calling 866-607-RACE. That's 866-607-7223. For more information, visit speedsportsracingpark.com/racing-academy. Top quality material, all presented in fluorescent yellow. You've seen it, and now you need to choose the flow. Since 2005, J3 Competition has been capturing major victories and championships both on and off the track, redefining the industry with each move. The company took its unparalleled knowledge and rolled it into their own chassis line in 2015, the Comp Cart. The CIK FIA homologated brand has been winning races ever since. There are 3 Comp Cart models to choose from. The Covert 3.0 R19 is the latest design for tag and shifter competition. The Covert 4R serves several popular categories, including 100cc and Briggs 206 racing. The Ranger 28 model is designed for cadet racing and will be the official chassis of the Minimax division at the 2019 Rotax Challenge Grand Finals in Sarno, Italy. And lastly, new karters can get right into the Comp Cart product from the beginning, running the microcart in the Kid Kart division. Visit j3competition.com for more on the fastest growing chassis line in the world. Do it now. Choose the flow. Welcome back to episode number 47 of the EKN Debrief here on the EKN Radio Network. It's April the 16th, 2019. And myself, Rob Howden, and David Cole reviewing the 2019 Challenge of the Americas and the final rounds 5 and 6 at Sim Raceway Performance Karting Center in Sonoma. All in all, a great weekend. Had some rain a little bit on Friday, a little bit on Saturday morning. Sunday, though, the sun came out, blue skies, a little bit of cloud, but otherwise, just a fantastic day to cap off the challenge. Again, back into the race report brought to you today by Bell Racing USA. In the Masters Rock, another one of our instances where a driver came in the middle of a tight championship battle and really went in and grabbed a hold of it by the horns, being I don't say the dominant driver, but winning races, which is key. On Saturday morning, Nick DeGraff qualifying on the pole in the VME, but from then on, it was all Derek Wang. Derek, of course, with Stepanova and Nikhil on the wrenches on the FA. He wins the pre-final.
Tony Kart.
I thought it was an FA.
FA bodywork with Tony Kart chassis. Yeah, I know. It's funny.
I was under the same tent as him.
Well, you obviously need the eyesight checked.
I just kept walking. Well, I am colorblind. Let's be real.
What's green look like to you? Green?
Honestly, I'm red. I'm red, green, and blue, yellow colorblind.
There you go. So you can't. So when it says green, you have no idea until somebody says it.
Would have been. You know what? I gotta look. I do. I just look at the guy waving it. Of course. Wang ends up winning the pre-final. It was super tight in qualifying, and this is the thing we love about the Masters class. Just 24 thousandths of a second separating the top 3 drivers in qualifying. But once we went wheel-to-wheel racing, Wang simply not challenged in the main event, the 22-lap main event. Top 4, once they got rolling, nobody changed. Wang ends up winning, as I said, and then Billy Cleveland in second. He was the primary challenger. Nick DeGraff, quick all weekend long. He ends up in third. And David Pregandi, who struggled a bit earlier on in the weekend, found some pace through both races. Pregandi ends up in fourth. Fast lap bonus for Derek Wang. And again, pre-final, the win, fast lap bonus. David, that's the way to do it, right? You're coming. And the funny thing is, I want to say that I think they missed giving him the fast lap bonus in the race. And he came in on Sunday morning and was like, I want to make sure I get my bonus. Because he knew, right? When you're in a championship like that, that 5 points can be so crucial.
Yeah, but he didn't really need it when you got done with Sunday's action, did he?
True. Let's jump into Sunday's action. All Derek Wang qualifies on the pole, wins the pre-final, wins by over 7 seconds over Billy Cleveland again. And you got to give it up for Cleveland. We'll talk in a second about the way the championship was. Billy just never gave up, but just didn't have the pace to challenge Derek all weekend long. It was just a couple of second-place finishes for Billy Cleveland.
Well, these were the 2 first wins for Derek Wang in the Masters Rock category because he had typically ran the senior category every year that he was at the challenge. So this was his first year in Masters. Went winless in the first 4 rounds, but was on the podium all 4 rounds. So that gave him the championship lead. And as we said, you got to just step up and do what you need to do on the finale weekend, and that's what he did.
To cap off the podium again, Wang with the win, Cleveland second. Rob Kozakowski, who's been a longtime challenge competitor, ends up in the 3rd spot. He was chased throughout the race by David Pergande and John Breidinger for the final podium position. But again, David, as you said, 4 podiums for Wang, but no wins. He comes in here, and the key was he outscored Billy Cleveland by 39 points, 235 to 196 in Sonoma, a 39-point swing with the win, both wins in the main, both fast lap bonuses. He wins by 20 points overall on the championship. I love a battle at the very end, but this is, again, like so many instances here in the final round at Sonoma, drivers coming in and really taking control of the weekend.
Well, if it wasn't for Nick DeGraff, it would have been a perfect score on the weekend for Derek Wang.
True. That's very true. Okay, let's move now into 100cc senior. They had, I want to say, 5 drivers in the category, and this is a class new to the challenge for 2019. And having driven the package, the VLR 100 package, throughout the weekend, I was thrilled with it, man. This, David, you've talked about the 100cc program and how people are embracing it and where it kind of fits in between the Briggs program and maybe the quicker 125cc liquid cool programs. I'm a big fan of it because it was, for me, a thrill all weekend long driving that deal. And the senior drivers, damn, they're quick, man. They're super fast. Cooper Becklin qualifies pole on Saturday. Colby Dubato ends up in the lead for the pre-final. In the main event, and I had a pretty good look at it because I was right there. I started. I started actually on the inside of row number 4 because there was 5. Yeah, row 3 was the 5th place driver in KA, and then on the outside was Calvin Chen, who qualified pole in the Masters class. They got into it in the opening corner. I can't remember. Somebody went too deep into the corner. It might have been Jackson Dunn. Something happened, and up and over they went. And again, I'm diving down on the inside to try to stay out of the way. Colby Dubato able to get through as well. Dubato ends up taking control. Becklin's having to come back. He, of course, gets up and over and has to kind of, obviously loses a bunch of space. He's got to come through the Masters field because we got through cleanly. So again, Dubato ends up getting the win. Cooper Becklin fights back to win by, to lose by just a second. He had the speed, but just not quite enough. He got back to second, and Jackson Dunn, who was involved as well, ends up in the 3rd spot. On Sunday, Becklin again qualifying on the pole. We talked about how well Cooper did in the senior rock category as well. So, the kid's got the skills. But it actually was Jackson Dunn who was able to take the pre-final win. But again, so we roll out for Sunday, and, I'm on the grid. I'm ready to rock here. And only 4 drivers end up, showing up for the 100cc senior as Becklin was late to the grid. So he's going to have to come rocking through the field from the tail. Dubato gets the lead early, takes it away from Jackson Dunn, who had won the pre-final. And the bottom line is Dubato walks away, ends up with the win. Josh Weiss actually coming through to grab second, took the position away from Dunn on lap 18. Becklin, as I said, started late from the grid, able to get back. He got through all of us Masters drivers, but was out early, I think lap 9 or something like that. Bottom line was Colby Dubato with a couple of wins, wins the championship, caps the season with 3 straight victories, and for him, winning a trip because of obviously not running that race at the Rock Cup International Final. He gets an entry into the Rock the Rio.
Another driver with 6 podiums because 3 third-place finishes for the first 3 rounds for Colby Dubato. He finally got that victory in round 4 at Tucson, and then 2 wins in Sonoma definitely locks up the championship for him.
Yeah, good for him. A little bit of chaos, as we said. I'm surprised they didn't kind of settle down in front of us and just go racing because there was an incident, as I said, the opening one on Saturday in turn 1, and I want to say one of the pre-finals they got together down in turn number 2, right before going into tic-tac-toe. Moving into my class, 100cc Masters, really not a whole lot to talk about in terms of racing. Calvin Chen dominated the weekend. I won't go too deeply into this. Calvin really dominated the weekend. qualify and pole both races, won both pre-finals. I stayed close in the one pre-final. I think there was a pre-final on Sunday. I was within a second of him in the pre-final. That was about all I was able to see for Calvin. He's got a lot of seat time. I was happy with that. Opening corner chaos, as we said on Saturday. Everybody kind of checking up. I had to lock it up a little bit. I think Calvin actually got collected in it behind us. Jimmy Gregory actually was able to slide through the inside. He took the lead early. I made a move over after the S's and overcooked it going into the corner. Ran out of talent. Gregory held the lead. Calvin ended up getting him, later that lap. I chased back down Jimmy and got by him on lap number 4. So it ends up with Chen and as the winner, myself running in second, and Jimmy Gregory in third on the podium with a good position to hose me down with Champagne. So
talent versus no talent versus Fireball.
There it is. That's the title right there. Again, on Sunday, as I said, Calvin Chen on the pole. He wins the pre-final. I was a second behind. In fact, for the majority of it, I was within about 2 or 3 kart lengths. And to be honest, I'll be real. I was just using Calvin to learn more about corner speed, right? I was kind of just trying to learn as much as I could about the way he was getting around the racetrack. And I found probably over a half a second sticking with him, which was great. Not able to do that in the main event, although I did lead the opening lap because there was more chaos. Again, I was able to slide through and lead the opening lap. Calvin went by me pretty quickly to complete his sweep of the weekend. And Craig Yeske, a local driver who has jumped back into karting, David, after many years away, and with a CRG, got the Rock VLR 100, absolutely loving it. Came out and joined in on the party with us on Sunday. End up finishing in the 3rd position to be on the podium. It was good to have Craig there with us. He and I were chatting a little bit about back when he was racing as a young guy, and just a great job for Craig. And good to see him back, and picked up that VLR 100 to run locally at Sonoma, and just digging it. So it was a fun race. The highlight for me, of course, was the pre-final. Able to stay within a couple of kart lengths of Calvin for a majority of that 15 lapper, and really. I'll give it to him. I was just using him as the marker, right? The rabbit. If he was going that deep, that's what I was doing. I was, I changed my line quite a bit, following him through. So, bottom line was, it felt pretty good being able to hang with Calvin there in that pre-final.
It was good to see you actually improve throughout a weekend instead of struggle like you typically do. So,
ouch. No, it was good. I did. Yeah, we found a lot of speed. It was overall. I found a second and a half, almost 2 seconds throughout the weekend. The main event, one thing, I will say this, one thing is I ran one set of tires for the entire weekend. Everybody else had fresh rubber on for qualifying on Sunday. So that says something for the Bridgestones too. Let's put it that way. I had one set for the entire weekend.
What about changes? Because I know you never make changes, so I'm going to guess you didn't make any changes.
My philosophy anytime that I get a chance to jump behind the wheel of something is there's no need to make any changes to the chassis unless I believe I'm driving the thing to 90%. That said, I was struggling a little bit with a mid corner oversteer. It was snapping on me. Now, again, snap loose on mid corner to exit, but again, I always attribute that to the fact that I consistently turn in early. Once I get more seat time at a track and more get more comfortable with the chassis, which I never get a chance to do, I'll wait. And in the main event on Sunday, I waited. I was shortening my braking zone. I talked to a couple of guys about that. A couple of guys I trust about what I could do, and they're saying you need to get a little deeper into the corner. Get on the brakes harder and earlier. Let off it and roll the corner. Billy Cleveland helped me out a lot with that actually, and turn in later. So had that later apex. But because I don't do that, the snap oversteer primarily comes because I've got too much wheel in it. Because I turn in early. That said, Eric we did go to a longer hub on the rear to kind of get to push a little more side by into the tire, and that did work. I felt a lot more comfortable throughout the entire race on Sunday. And hey, you know what? Closing in on and being with Calvin in the pre-final was great, but for me, to be honest, I ran hard. My fastest laps were at the end of a 22 lap main, and I think I said I've lost about 10 pounds since the start of the year. I'm happy that I pushed hard and showed good pace for 22 laps, because that was one thing I was worried about coming in. Would I even last that long?
Yeah, and Sonoma's not exactly easy on the body either.
No. Well, and listen, I'm going to give it to two things as well. I've got the new Bell RS7 carbon helmet. As I said, it's very light, and I didn't wear a neck guard. I don't like wearing a neck guard. I don't use them. My head felt great the entire time. The helmet's so light, and I'll tell you this too. Now, my seat was a little tight because I used it, but Robbie Mott sent me one of his new RibTech carbons, and I'm telling you, I went through tic-tac-toe pretty hard a bunch of times. And as you're coming through the right-hander, which is the helipad afterwards, there's a bit of a patch they put in. And there were times that a big, hard, the car took a set on the exit. And I know that would have hurt my ribs. With that RibTech carbon, zero issues. And I would be smiling coming out of the helipad knowing that, man, if I didn't have this RibTech, I'd probably be broken right now. But as a 50-year-old dude, I felt great all weekend long. And that really surprised me. Thanks to the Bell helmet. And big thanks to Robbie's RibTech vest. Man, it was awesome. I'm going to say that right now.
We'll just say your lap times were, your fastest was a 56.3, and your slowest not passing was a 56.7. So not bad.
Not bad, right? It was pretty solid. It was solid. All right, let's move into some real racing. Not me driving around. Mini Rock category. Really, this particular battle, and David, you can talk more about how it kind of unfolded through the entire season. But Enzo Delaney versus Logan Toke. That was really the weekend. Enzo qualified pole on Saturday. Logan ends up winning the pre-final. Toke actually winning the final as well. Delaney got a black flagged in the pre-final. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, but it was something that I know that Cameron Jocelyn protested. He was not happy with it. Whatever it was, Delaney got...
It was mechanical black flag.
Yeah, I don't know what... I can't remember... running back and forth like I was, I can't remember what it was. It was something that I think was questionable. And then, of course,
well, and what they did was they because I asked is they removed the laps for him ignoring.
Yeah, they stopped scoring him. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyways, he gets black flag. Delaney does in the pre-final. So he's got to drive essentially from the back of the pack all the way back to the front and ends up finishing second in the final. Toke runs off to the win. David, throughout this race report, we've talked about drivers, dominating a weekend. That didn't happen here. This was a battle back and forth between Delaney and Toke. Toke drawing first blood on Saturday. He gets the race win to tighten up the championship. And then, of course, Sunday things change around. But, man, a good battle between both of these drivers all weekend.
It was a exposed axle. So the hub had slid in and the axle was exposed.
Yes.
So, a safety issue. It's, you don't want an axle spinning out in the open. So I can see the reason for that meatball flag.
I'm not sure if I'm on the same side as you because I don't. Again, you gotta call that being a safety thing. That's tough. That's really tough because again, I remember them saying that had it slid in, had he come in, and it's not gonna be a track width deal, right? It's interesting. That's tough. That's very, very tough for him. So anyway, as I said, Logan Toke with the win. Enzo Delaney ends up getting in second. And Anthony White actually on the podium in third. Another third-generation driver, right? The son of Joe White. Anthony White finishing in third. So it's cool to see that family there.
That was his fourth third-place finish.
Well, make it 5.
Over the year. And then you had Sunday with 5. But, but you give Toke a third victory there, so that kind of propels him at the top of the championship chase as they go into Sunday.
And that's it, right? All of a sudden, this 2-driver battle we'd have all year and all weekend gets fired up again. This time, though, Delaney, again, you got to go get it, right, Dave? So Toke's really kind of in the driver's seat. As you said, 3 wins. Delaney's got to go get it. Qualifies on pole, bonus points. Most points, wins the pre-final. Most points there. Wins the final as well over Toke. In fact, takes over the lead on lap number 11, wins by just over a half a second. Toke even gets the final lap. the fast lap, but it comes down to the points accrued in the final race. Enzo Delaney wins the championship by just 5 points. Tightest battle of the championship this year.
Yes, without a doubt. And again, as you said, the qualifying, those are 5 points there.
They are.
So, Deligny had 1, 2 on the year and Toke only had 2. So, you steal that one other one from White had one in Cal Speed, so you steal that one or whoever, it's just, you never know what's going to happen. So it's a tight battle.
And Toki even got the fast lap of the race on Sunday too, which is 5 bonus points. So very, very tough for both drivers, but kudos to Enzo Delaney for winning the ticket to the Rock Cup International Final. Logan Toke, of course, winning that entry into the Rock the Rio. Great battle in the mini rock category. We'll cap things off quickly. We had 4 drivers in the micro rock class. Filippo Sala dominated the action on Saturday, qualified on pole, won the pre-final, won the main event. Although Gage Jarvis, who was a lone driver last year, ended up being the quickest in the final. He took second. Sidney Castles rounding out the podium in third. On Sunday, Sala wins in the qualifying run, however. Zachary Walrod ends up winning in the pre-final, and he actually wins the main event as well. He was good out of the box. Sala had some issues. I'm not sure what it was. Some kind of a mechanical put him on the sidelines on lap number 4. Walrod ends up winning with by a large margin. Post fast lap of the race, Gage Jarvis in second, Sidney Castles again in third. But with 5 wins, David, Filippo Sala scoring the championship and the entry into the Rock the Rio.
Yeah, DQ might have been an issue for Sala in the championship chase, but again, 5 wins gets him the title. Jarvis second, and Sidney Castles ending up third in the title chase.
So, folks, there it is, your race report brought to you by Bell Racing USA as David Cole and I wrap up the Challenge of the Americas series for 2019, not just the actual racing as well in Sonoma, but David giving us some insights into what happened in the opening rounds, talking a bit about the championship. All in all, some very deserving champions who will represent the Challenge of the Americas this year at the 2019 Rock Cup International Final. All right, David, let's wrap things up here real quickly. We'll jump into the EKN Trackside Live race calendar, talk about where you and I are going to be over the next month. This edition of the calendar presented by Mad Old Nut Racing. The shift is on to a new brand and a new way of thinking. Croc Promotion USA is the American importer and distributor, and Mad Old Nut Racing is the official race team. We're ready to attack in 2019, and our results speak for themselves. We're winning races and championships and running up front. Croc Promotion USA has momentum. Dedicated and talented young drivers, supported and mentored by team owners who know business and who are passionate about karting. That's Croc Promotion USA. That's Mad Old Nut Racing. Search for us on social media and give us a follow. All right, Dave, we'll quickly do this. We did this in the last podcast as well. We don't need to go too crazy. First weekend of May. You and I have a bit of a break until then. First weekend of May, 3rd, 4th, 5th. We're going to Utah, the Utah Motorsports Campus for the SuperKarts USA Pro Tour Spring Nationals, rounds 3 and 4 of this year's Pro Tour.
Excited to be back going to Utah. It's going to be a thrilling weekend. Going to see how the championship chases unfold going to the 3rd and 4th rounds of the Pro Tour, and see who's going to be coming out with a better chance, and those who are going to those who need to step up come Spring Nationals.
That's it. That's Summer Nats. Yeah, who's going to step up when we get to Newcastle? For the remainder of the month, I'm busy. I'm at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway following so many of the young karters that we've watched over the last so many years. Part of the Road to Indy, and of course, part of the NTT IndyCar Series. Looking forward to the IndyCar Grand Prix weekend. I'll be with IndyCar Radio for the qualifying weekend as well. And of course, I'll get a chance to work my 4th Indianapolis 500. An honor and a privilege for sure. David, during qualifying weekend for the 500, you are going to be up at Road America, WK Manufacturers Cup at C-Tech Manufacturing Motorplex in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. I know how Road America really has a place in your heart.
Excited to be back. We're just looking at the pictures I have behind me in the office the other day when my dad stepped over, and excited to be going back there, and excited to see what the racing is going to be like on the repaved track that was just done last year.
I'll be tuning in for sure. I'm excited, as you are, to see how things roll out when they get up to Road America. Those are the races that we have in May. Lots more, of course, in June, July, and August, as we have 24 races on the EKN Trackside Live, presented by Cooper Tires calendar here for 2019. We look forward to some great racing. David, let's wrap things up now from Sonoma. Overall, 9 different brands scoring wins in Sonoma. Cosmic with 3. Jake Drew and senior Calvin Chen getting those 2 wins in 100cc. Of course, both of those drivers running for HRT. Shifters was all CRG though, right? Ronnie White and Patrick O'Neill. Those guys get the job done.
Yeah. So, big wins for both those drivers. White securing the championship and O'Neill defending the home turf on Sunday.
Tony Kart is David giving me the confirmation, the correction that Wang actually on the Tony Kart, the OTK product. He won both of the Masters Rock categories. Enzo Delaney winning in Mini. Expree with a couple of wins for Speed Sense Motorsports with William Ferguson. The Ricardo chassis with 2 wins for Colby Dubata when 100cc senior. 1 win for the Red Army, Burrell Art.
Two actually. We forgot Schermerhorn. So.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
so
Ben Schermerhorn. So 2 wins for Burrell.
Yep.
Good job. Top Kart 1, VME 1, Bennick 1 in the mini and micro categories. So that's your championship, your Constructors Championship. Overall, David, let's wrap it up. Now, I'll wrap up the race. You can wrap up the series. 96 entries overall, another strong step for the drivers for the Challenge of the Americas since moving to the Rock platform in 2018. I think cool. I was part of it. 4 drivers in the 100cc Masters class for the season finale. Jimmy Gregory was the only driver throughout the season in 100cc Masters, and Andy Saisman kind of got things started. He and Jimmy, offered me a seat. We made it 2, and then Calvin Chen jumped on board to make it 3, and then Craig Yeske came in on Sunday to make it 4. I think that was really cool to have the 4 drivers in the 100cc Masters class. All in all, though, David, you got to look forward and say, hey, there's going to be some growth because great numbers are growing numbers for the Rock Sonoma program. Rock program growing in SoCal at the Tri-C Carters series and, of course, with the FKC as well. You couple that with the Rock California series, the new one that's coming out that's going to give Rock customers a chance to race, which really what this is, right? Andy talked about it at the drivers meeting. The Rock California, if you got a Rock, if you own one and you want to go race, there's a lot of opportunities to race here in 2019, and that's again just going to fuel more growth for 2020.
Well, let's not forget Colorado and the Rocky Mountains as well too. Yep. Colorado has a number of drivers that took part in the Challenge of the Americas, all 3 events of the season. Drivers from Texas coming over to race as well too. So it's not only growing in California, but it's getting momentum building in other states throughout the western half of the United States and, possibly North America, up in Canada as well too. So we'll possibly see some growth up there. So it's all about growth. We said that last year, and I think we're going to repeat that again this year. It's just growing the numbers and getting everybody on board and racing the same events that everybody else wants to race. That's key to, as you said, breeding big numbers.
And let's cap this thing off by reminding people that the inaugural event for the Rock California Championship set for May 18th and 19th at Buttonwillow Raceway Park. So I know that Andy and the crew are excited about kind of getting back to a mid-season series. That's not something they've had for a while.
It's going to keep Andy and his crew a little bit busier this summer during the summer months, not only helping out and going to events with Tri-C and other programs that are in Southern California. But this series will not only be focused for Southern California, but for Northern California. And as we said, other surrounding states coming over and racing, a condensed type Challenge in the Americas type atmosphere.
Well, there you have it, folks. Wrapping things up here now for the EKN Debrief of the final round of the Challenge of the Americas. We went a little longer with this podcast. David, of course, giving us lots of information about the series as a whole. We had a chance to talk about championships as well, but that's going to cap things off. Again, Streeter Superstands, the presenting sponsor of our broadcast here today, this particular podcast, and we thank all the good folks at Streeter Superstands. Shop online at streetersuperstands.com. Once again, folks, if you're listening on the EKN Radio Network, you've downloaded the app. We appreciate it. Give us a review, please. We love that. If you're listening to one of the podcasts that you've downloaded on iTunes or Google Play, please do us a favor. Leave us a review. Give us a 5-star. If you don't give us a 5-star, send us an email and tell us what you want us to improve on. We appreciate it. Any emails, any input, always a positive. David Cole, thank you so much for joining us, folks. That wraps up another edition of the Debrief here on the EKN Radio Network. My name's Rob Howden. Bye for now.